Hello and welcome to Spirit Forest. Here I am. Do you see me? Yes, here I am. I am going to answer the question that everyone keeps asking me is why is my cabin so big? And it's not a cabin, that's a house. This is huge. You don't need something that big. Why do you have such a big place? And why are you building such a big home? And I am going to answer that in this video so that way hopefully I don't get asked that question anymore. So I don't mean to be rude in any way in this video. I don't want you taking it that way. I don't want you being offended by anything. I just want to kind of explain to you why I built the cabin the size that I did. So originally, this cabin was going to be a 1-bedroom on 1 floor, maybe have a loft. That's what it started out to be. My original thought was that this was going to be like a tiny home, really small, only what you need would go into this cabin, and that was going to be it. Very, very small, was just going to be me here and maybe a partner. Then I start to think, and I was like, well, maybe a loft would be nice because maybe my kids would come. That might be somewhere for them to sleep, so we're not all sleeping like in a tiny home where you really are maxed out and maybe 2 to 3 people, again, depending on the tiny home. But the tiny home that I was kind of looking for was about that. It was just a 1 level with a loft bed, and that was going to be it. Now, what if my kids had kids and they wanted to come? Where are they going to stay in that tiny home? So then I made a decision that, okay, I'll do a 1-bedroom with a loft that is big enough to sleep my kids, maybe multiple people can all just put up a sleeping bag and sleep right here in my loft. So then I thought, what if I expanded the loft into this other area? And then I just had a bigger loft that maybe later I can convert into a room and a bathroom, but I would do that later. And so now I have an upstairs loft area that's pretty big. But then I started thinking, what would it cost for me to convert this into a bedroom now and a bathroom, then do it later after the house is built? And then I have this extra space because I decided to put place for my gear, because as I was thinking, I was like, I'm not going to build a garage. Where am I going to put my kayak, my paddleboard, my mountain bike, my electric bike? Where am I going to put all of my gear? So then I created a gear room, which is below me. And then I'm like, well, since I have something that's just sitting here, why not open this up and have it be a door, and then I can just stand on top of my gear room and I can see the mountains. And then we have the pitch of my roof. I needed to have a really steep roof for this area because we get a lot of snow here in Colorado. Because I had such a steep roof, it's very possible I could have a little attic in there, just put another subfloor down and have a top area here. It's kind of a fun living space for possibly grandkids. So then I changed my mind and I wanted to go back to the tiny home kind of look and feel, and something just really small. But then I put my business hat on and was like, okay, what does it cost me to get that tiny home started? I have to have power in here. I have a septic, a well, and there was something else, my driveway. Got to put in my driveway to get to the tiny home. Trying to think, I think there was one other thing, but we're close to like $30,000 to $40,000 before I pay for the tiny home to get on there. So by the time the tiny home is there, and let's say It's a 1-bedroom loft kind of arrangement, like the typical tiny homes. I like tiny homes. I think they're kind of fun. But by the time I have all these other costs involved in it, it's just that tiny home per square foot cost a lot of money. Well, I'm a businesswoman, and that's not a good investment. If I'm going to put a lot of money towards something, I want to make sure that it's an investment and I can get it back. And if I'm looking at a really high price per square footage for a tiny home, that did not make sense to me. So let's just sit and talk. Yes, my cabin is big. It is probably one of the smaller cabins in this area. When all is said and done, my cost per square foot will be still less than the cabins here in this area. So if I decide not to keep the cabin, which I don't think I will, if I decide not to keep the cabin, I know I could make money off this investment. So this whole debate of a cabin versus a house, I don't understand. Like, I would have never thought that I would be judged by people because I'm calling this a cabin when other people call it a house. To me, a cabin is a house. It's where somebody lives. But why don't I call it a house? Why am I calling it a cabin? To me, it's in the woods. It's in the mountains. It's kind of more rural. I don't have a house right next to me that I can almost touch from my window. My entire life, I have lived like that. That I have had people all around me in suburbia, in the city, in downtown. That's where I've been living. And coming out here, and yes, I have neighbors. But I'm talking right now and they can't hear me. And all my windows are open. You know, like in my house, if I needed a private conversation, I'd have to go around the house and shut all the windows because all the neighbors, I could hear a conversation that my neighbor would be having. Here, being more remote, being amongst the trees, to me, that is a cabin. A cabin represents like your sanctuary, the place that you go. I know people that have cabins on lakes. You know what I mean? They'll call it like their lake cabin or their river cabin or, you know, stuff like their river home. It doesn't matter is what I'm trying to say. It really doesn't matter. I'm calling it a cabin because that's what I feel it is. No, it is not a log siding. It is not timbers and all that I know a lot of you want me to build my cabin after from all the timbers that are on my property. And I've mentioned it multiple times. None of these trees in my property are structural enough for me to build a cabin like this. Now, could I build a tiny little, I don't know, 10 by 10 little type cabin? Yeah, I could. And maybe one day I will. You never know, you know, but building something like this where this is an investment in my future as well. Now, I hope that financially in the future, I will be able to pass this cabin down to my kids. Now, if my kids decide that they don't want to live in Colorado anymore, and they're living in Florida or they live in Hawaii or maybe abroad somewhere, I'm not going to pass the cabin down to them. This cabin's going to eventually be sold. And that money for the cabin, I will use to buy another place, most likely next to my kids. So you guys are getting where I'm going here, right? Like if I build a little tiny home, I might not be able to sell it in the future. I also won't be able to use it as much as I would want to use it in the way that I'd want to use it because it is a tiny home. I have watched a ton of tiny home videos on YouTube. I follow a lot of people that live in tiny homes full time. I hear the struggles that they have. I hear the positive stuff too, but it's like, I don't want those kind of struggles. I want when I have a friend here, they can stay in a room if they want. I have a 2-bedroom cabin. It is not huge, but they're welcome to stay in a room and they get their own balcony and we can just sit over here and look at the trees, and it's just going to be, and everyone kind of has their own space, which I'm all about. You guys know that. I'm all about my own space. I like having my own space. I don't like to be crammed, and I've been crammed in the city for so long that I just like it to be wide open. And when I talked to the architect and she was designing this, I said, I want it like I'm outside. Well, I am outside right now. Yeah, her job's done. No, I'm kidding. I just thought that was funny for a moment. But it's like, I want it to be like I'm outside. I just want all of this to be open, because it's like, I feel like in the city, it's just like, everything's just kind of, it just kind of go, I don't know how to explain it. That's what it feels like in the city. And out here, it's really nice and open. And yes, the cabin is, as it's being built, there's part of me is like, oh, this is bigger than I thought, but it's like a 1,300 square foot cabin. It's not huge. This is not a huge. Most of the cabins here in this area are in the 2,000s, 3,000 square foot range. So mine's actually a lot smaller than a lot of them here. And this is one of the cabins in the area that's only a 2-bedroom. The majority of them are 3. So I debated on whether or not I had that 3rd bedroom. That attic is really going to help me with that, but because the attic's going to be kind of fun and magical, is how I see it. And again, I don't see myself selling the cabin anytime soon. I want to live in it till I can't be here anymore, until I can't chop my own wood and shovel my own snow. When that happens, that's when I know that it's time for me to move on from this property or to pass it down to the kids, depending on what's going on whenever. But I wanted to answer this because I think almost in every video, every cabin video that I post, I at least get a couple comments saying, that is not a cabin, that is a house. And I wanted to give you guys a definition for that. And I don't, again, mean to be rude or come off as mean in any way. It's just, I'm being honest with you. That's really what it is. I'm just being honest. So come follow my journey in building my cabin. So I will see you on my next video. Bye-bye.